Hey, welcome back to Made Up of Wires, where we're decompiling Castlevania Symphony of the Night. You can go to soten.z.dev to learn more about this project. You can see a lot of progress that we've made on the overlays that we've been working on. Find a link to GitHub and Discord. I think we're going to get right into it. We've been working on the clock tower, one of the few remaining stages in the first castle. I think we're going to look at entity background gears today. I thought that had been done, but it looks like not. That's going to be in the E background gears, EG gears file. And we have two different versions. We have one for PSP and one for the PlayStation. And I'm assuming that those are going to end up being the same. So we're going to do what we always do, grab the assembly, starting with the PlayStation version, work through that as far as we can. As we get close to the end, and especially if we haven't gotten a match, we'll move on to the PSP version, get that one to match too, make sure both versions match, and by matching I mean the C code that we write needs to compile to exactly the same thing that's on the game disk. And then we'll see if there's any data and other things like that to pull in. I'm hoping this one's going to be pretty straightforward, but you never know. So let's pull up the assembly first. We have different versions of assembly depending on the version of the game. That's both because they were compiled at different times and maybe with slightly different code, slightly different configuration. Layout on disk may have changed, different things like that. Lots of things can change how something gets compiled, including the compiler, the linker, etc., and how the order of those files gets chosen. For the most part, the different versions of the game have the same code, but the compiled versions frequently look different. So I'm going to copy this, take it over to decomp.me. We're using the PlayStation and the Symphony of the Night preset. Paste that in. How do you get that assembly to begin with? I do have a video, it's about a year old, a little older than a year, about setting up the project and how you use your own copy of Symphony of the Night to get going. You do need a copy of Symphony of the Night to be able to participate and see this. There's several different ways to get a copy of Symphony of the Night. The easiest, maybe I think you can still get the PlayStation eShop version, which I believe is just an ISO of the PlayStation game. I don't have that version. I should get that version. I think you can still get all the PS3. I think the Vita shop is still open even. All right, so we're looking for some. Yeah, it is easy to get the Requiem collection versions, but the layout of those is a little strange compared to the other versions of the game. You don't just get the ISO. And most of our tooling is based on extracting things from the ISO. So I think those are the most easily accessible, but I don't necessarily think that they're the easiest. There's a bunch of things that for extracting the game, those versions make a little challenging. Soten.fun, though, does look at those versions of the game. And as Aldrich was mentioning, I think it's in the overlay page, which I don't think is linked anywhere. The Requiem collection has all of so the PlayStation 4 has all of the same files. And we can tell by hash that they are the same files as the PSP EU version of the game. And I don't think that there's anything in the PSP EU version that doesn't exist there. But then you do have to figure out how to get those, extract those files, which it's possible, but left up to an exercise for the reader. All right, so this is a pretty short function. I think it should be pretty straightforward. We have to fix some types and some variables, and we'll do that. What I want to do first is get a slightly better starting point. I'll have to redo some of the work that I just did. So I'm expecting, to the background gears in the clock tower. Should I open DuckStation so we have a reference here? Might not be the worst idea. Let's see if I can pull this in. And is this controller gonna work? Let's see. Are we working? Are we working? It says it's connected. It's not doing anything. Bummer. Like DuckStation does this to me a lot. I don't switch controllers too often, and now I still can't. Still not moving. Let's restart. Yeah, sometimes research is necessary. So the background gears, we'll get through this part, and we should see they're part of the environment. You can't interact with them directly. They're going to be just in the clock tower background, as you can see, moving all around, doing what you expect them to do, which is the background gears. And oh, it looks like I died. That's okay. We can go back a bit. I only have 15 health. That doesn't seem like the best. I might leave this in the background and get back up to health. I don't remember what was happening when this occurred, but anyway, that's what the background gears are. And so we should be able to see that basically there should be a timer, and we're updating frames in the animation. I think really that's it. I don't think that there's going to be anything that's massively complicated here, but we'll see. We never know. So we need to, the ALEC primitives, every drawing surface in the game is a primitive. They're quads, and we take the sprite and we draw it on this quad. The quad exists in 3D space, but with limited exception, they're really only used as 2D planes. It does happen where there are 3D surfaces in the game. The sword familiar is 3D and moves in a 3D environment. The clock tower, when you're in Castle Keep, is obviously 3D. The in the back of the chapel, that's all 3D. So and the rotation and scaling takes advantage of those surfaces as well. So we exit out early if we can't allocate the primitives. These are they are decorative, and so we don't necessarily need them. I'm going to call var a1 underscore 2. I'm going to call that prim. That's typically what we name our primitive pointer. And var a1, we're going to call that prim as well. Those likely will be the same thing. We're going to fix this loop. This is just a while prim is not null. We're going to go through and see if there's anything obvious first. This T7 looks like maybe an I. So we do need an I. I was hoping to get around having that, but it looks like there will be one. So how many of these? So we're allocating 9 primitives for this. Hey, Roaming, good to have you. I think one of the interesting things may be, do we know why it's 9? Maybe it's based on the dimensions of the background tiles. Not sure yet. We'll see if that number comes up again. Our loop is only for 3 of these, which is also interesting. And then the remaining look like they're covered in this loop down here. No, there's an inner loop. Okay, so we do each loop 3 times. So yeah, but basically that's going to be a grid, then it looks like. So we'll do I and J for the grid variables. So everywhere that we're using var T7, that's going to be I. Looks like it's not used internally at all. And then it looks like var A3 is our J. It looks like these might be 128 pixels in whatever the I dimension is. And it looks like I screwed something up along the way. It looks like they're 128 by 128. On line 54. And it didn't improve the match at all, but I think that's more right than not. All right, so then we need to look at some of these other variables. So the var A2 is going to be our pos x. And when these are out of order, usually it seems like it's a pass-through assignment. The PlayStation probably isn't affected by that, but the PSP will be. All right, and let's look at these. Some of these may be computed internally. We'll have to kind of work backwards to see where these might, or how they might be computed. if, for example, we know that animation current frame is never used or never modified, it's definitely possible that this is being set down here. This is definitely an optimization. We're setting temp v0 underscore 2 to the 7-bit shifted result of temp v2, temp v1 underscore 2 equals 2 or equals 3. And so those are shorthand ways of saying if temp v1 underscore 2 is equal to 2, then the result should be 128, otherwise it should be 0. Likewise, here, if it's equal to 3, the result should be 120 or 250, no, sorry, 128 if it's equal to 3. So let's first rename temp v1 underscore 2. I don't know that there's a variable here, but having a variable name will be nicer than not having one. We're actually going to have 2 x and y variables, one for like the upper left and one for the lower right, and then those are going to be swapped. So 2 pos x's, 2 pos y's. And likewise, u and v, those are the texture coordinates. So we'll call that u0, so u1, v0. V0 shouldn't be confused with the register of the same name, V0 and V2. I called this V2 because that's the lowest field name. Should I call that X0? I don't know. These actually X2 and X look like they are backwards, so it might be better to rename those. Likewise, there might not be a pos y2, it might just be pos y plus 180. I'm gonna try that, or sorry, 128. The mask here, I'm not sure if that is necessary. And that kind of looks like the same thing, where maybe we should be doing the pos x down here. Seven F is 127, right? Yeah. So V0 and U0, I'm going to change that to a normal conditional. I doubt somebody wrote something otherwise. This is a little strange, the mask here. U0, oh, maybe these are yeah, they're already signed. No, they're not signed. They should be signed, and I think we'll get all the masking for free then. Should they be signed? I'm going to leave them as signed for now, and we'll see how that goes. I don't think that's going to be necessary. Same thing here. Could it be a ternary? It could be. That's getting us a little further from what was originally, or from matching. I really don't think these masks are there. I could be wrong, but I don't think they're there. So a bunch of register issues. Interesting negation in the middle of all this. Not sure where that's coming from. Oh, because this is a signed value. So this would be -1. Yeah, so maybe these aren't signed then. So let's make them unsigned. See how that affects. Doesn't really affect anything too much. All right. I'm going to check up here. We have one too many variables, at least. The V2, that probably is the same where U1. Where are we even setting U1? Looks like I missed that along the way. So that should get rid of, yeah, the need for these additional variables. So let's see which ones of these we still have. Hoping we can get rid of most of them. The animation current frame may not be its own variable. Hey, Volto. Good to have you. We do have POSX2 someplace. Where did I... Okay, alright, so that's not the best, but it's not the worst. I think the rest of this is going to be easier on the PSP. So we're going to grab PSP EU version, ST-NZ1, non-matchings, NZ1, PSP, DBG gears, and should be pretty similar. PSP. Yeah, it's just the background. The other gears were loading. The other gears were a little more interesting because the hitbox for walking around the gears is all calculated, which is kind of fun. But these, yeah, are just drawing. So every tick, they're going to update the animation. And I think that's about it. Oop, not what I wanted. I'll grab this. So we're at about 64%. Let's look at what M2C says about this and see if we're close, far, or something else. So we do have a fall through. We do need... For whatever reason... M2C knows here that bar S2 is a primitive. Oh, I need to fix the primitives. If you haven't followed Symphony of the Night decompilation in the past, for reasons that I'm not positive about yet, but if we ever get into the Xbox 360 version, this may be more clear. The size of the primitive struct changes. So the primitive struct is made to mirror the Poly GT4 struct from the PlayStation API. And in that PlayStation API version of the struct, there's several fields that are supposedly reserved for API use, but Konami decided that they were going to reuse those for other things and store data in them. And so a primitive is a Poly GT4, just using this padding for other specific things. When we move to the PSP version of the game, there's an additional 32 bits that's between the first next pointer and the rest of the Poly GT4 pointer, or sorry, struct. And we see that type of thing a lot with pointers. And the assumption that I have is that when they were making the Xbox 360 port, structs or pointers became 64 bits, and so the size of the struct gained this extra 32 bits of padding. Oh, interesting. Roaming says there's a 360 decomp toolkit called Jeff. Interesting. Yeah, I haven't. So we do have a Ghidra dump of the game. So what's interesting about the Xbox 360 version is it's a single binary instead of all the overlays. And all right, so here we're setting up pause X and pause Y. We do have so it looks like these are going to be signed 16s. Those are coming immediately after animate entity. And it was not a separate variable for animate current frame, but using that directly in these. And so U0 and V0 are set to 0. And only if those conditions are true, it looks like. Do they get reset to something else? I'm pretty sure these masks will just go away. But the interesting thing here is that the types are signed 32. So I was wrong about the types. Let's make sure that bar S6 is also, yeah, and bar S5 are signed 32s as well. We can make this U and V instead of U0, V0, U0, V0. And we don't need the animation current frame anymore. And again, U and V are the X and Y coordinates for textures. And it does look like the plus 128 is just happening inline. There's no separate variable for that. And then at the end, where is the pause X increment is going to have to be here. Where is that happening? Oh, interesting. So it's a multiplication. So we're not actually keeping track of POSX. We are, but it's going to be POSX plus J times 128. And the ordering here may be off. And this is going to be plus I times 128. And so we don't have these pluses at the end. And that's getting us much closer then. So the draw mode is set. That's all correct. And we do have a fall through in either case. Interesting that I'm always unsure why M2C doesn't put the fall through comment in. Maybe for irregular switches it doesn't do it. I don't know. Let's go back and look to see where we are in the grand scheme of things. I'm just going to go down and try to find, so prim index, we're doing an extra sign extension, which means we have the wrong type. Down in 26. The order of these looks wrong. So we're saying flags first and then prim index. Oh, and that looks like it's almost complete then. Different var here, 42. Oh, so the mask is explicit here. So we're taking the screen position and only looking at the bottom 28 bits, or not. Is the whole thing masked? Or POSX and POSY are the things that are masked? Nope. Well, let's look at M2C again. So it's possible that I would assume that bitwise AND would find closer than the subtraction. But I guess I was wrong. So it's just missing parens. Okay, so we have some register issues, it looks like. And these look like they're possibly all plus 127. Or I'm missing a mask. Or no, the multiplication here is plus 127? Or times 127? Again, this may be... Alright, that works. It looks like... So we do have register issues. I'm not too concerned with that, but that's all that's remaining. The register issues may be coming from ordering. Not quite. This is 127. I don't think that this is going to make a difference. So it looks like probably ordering of the registers or of the variables at the top. Let's try to figure that out. Maybe U and V are defined first. Or what? So up on 41, we're actually assigning pause X prior to doing the mask. So we still have the register issues, but the instructions are correct. So we have all the right assignments. So we're gonna have to do the same thing for pause Y. Not sure why it'd be written like this, but it looks like that's what matches. So I'll go with it. And that's what was necessary to get the registers to match. Bizarre. I wouldn't have expected that to get the registers to match. So what do you know? I think that's it. So we have the symbol difference here. That's going to account for 10 of our 20. And then the symbol difference here. And that's going to account for the other 10 of our 20. So I think that this is going to be correct. And it should work on the PlayStation as well. The PlayStation, we get a 10. Because of this symbol difference, all the other symbols should match. And that looks like it's a match. So go back over and make sure that that works. So the things that are going to be missing then are G interactable should be available to both. That's not an issue. It's really just that other symbol that's going to be missing. And so while that's going, I'll come back over to the PSP version and we'll replace this with the correct symbol for the PSP, and then eventually we'll have to reconcile that. All right, so that worked for the PlayStation. We'll do the PSP next. I can't, I don't have my Twitch chat link up, but roaming is correct. Meet Jeff and Xbox 360. I'll pull this up. It looks like it's forked from GCC and Wii Decomp Toolkit. Interesting. So we'll have to look back at that and see what we can find. All right, so here's Jeff if you want to find it later. So we have both these in place. What is missing now is this animation data. I think Init Interactable is already in a shared header, so let's try to build without that if we don't need that. That would be great. But we do need that. Not a huge concern. So next we need to find the data for this and make sure it's mapped properly on both of them. So it's not. Yeah. So let's look at Splat. So we're looking for FB0. And yeah, we just need to map that to EBG gear. And we'll pull this in. So I'm going to grab the original byte ordering since these are just bytes. And we'll throw it in here. Let's see. So I could leave these as octal because there's nothing above 8 in any of them, but we'll change them to just integers. So that should be enough. Let's see if that works as expected. We map that, and if this works, then it should be pretty straightforward to bring that over to the PSP as well. So we have to, when we do that, we have to rebuild everything in, is it gears? Is that what? Yeah, it's gears. Just a misspelling. When we changed the Splat config, that requires rebuilding all of the C files for that particular overlay, but that worked fine. So then ideally, this is going to work the same for the PSP as well, but in practice, maybe not so much. So let's figure out where that data is on the PSP. And if this is all by itself, like the PlayStation was, then great, it's not. And so that's not a huge deal. We just need to add an additional split, probably before and after where this data is. And it's just kind of right in the middle of a lot of other things. So we go down to 26440, which is just a collection of all kinds of data. We're going to add a new entry here at the start of this. We're going to call it, let's call it data for now. And instead of dot data, the difference being dot data gets it from the C file, whereas data will get it from the extracted assembly. We'll call it E background gears. And then we need to split again. We don't want anything after this. So immediately after it is what looks like padding. So I'm actually going to start. No, I don't know for sure. We'll split it there. That seems odd. Seems like superfluous padding. So this, I didn't do anything to change where that data is coming from, just splitting up the file where that data is. And so we won't see that data here anymore, but we should have a EG gears. Sorry, NZ1 PSP EG gears file now, which has hopefully the same data that was in the PlayStation version. And we're going to pull that in. I'm just going to assign it for now. Make this static. And then in the Splat config, we're going to change this data to a dot. Build again. And that works fine. And now since we know that that data was the same, and nothing else uses that symbol, it's static, this is the only file that does it, we can actually change this now to the PlayStation version of this and not have a separate file any longer. And that's, as I've said, as we've been going through this, that's the goal of most of this, is to use the same source file for both the PSP and the US version, eventually for the Saturn version and the Xbox 360 version, etc. Hey OTM, good to have you back. So let's build that again, and then we can delete the PSP specific version. So that one's gone. And this one is here. So another one in the bag. So I've been keeping these a little shorter this week. They'll probably be a little shorter this week. But short, sweet, simple. That's all we're going to do today. We got the background gears of the clock tower done. I'm probably going to spend some time this afternoon cleaning up all the changes that we've done, submit them back, get them in. I haven't been a good contributor lately. I've been decompiling stuff and just kind of sitting on my own. Christmas break, cut off the world, and I should probably get back to interacting with humans, besides you guys in chat, of course. Go to soten.z.dev to learn more, and we'll be back tomorrow. Adios.